doorbell at Jimmy's house. Now, when you come to my house, my doorbell sounds like this.
Hey, this is People's Radio Monthly. This is February's edition. I'm here with Steve Shagwell and Team DenMom, and I'm Tim BestBudz. I'm a little sick today and kind of out of it, so I apologize. How are you guys doing today?
Doing all right.
I'm doing great.
Cool. Let's get started like we did last time with just talking about what's going on with People's Radio in general, talk about the different shows. Do you want to get started? Because you just had a show yesterday, Steve, that just came out today. I Fought the Law.
Oh, yeah, the I Fought the Law.info podcast. I'm not keeping to the schedule I set for myself, but I've been very busy with a lot of things. Activism is just, I do a fair amount of it, but it's actually a small part of what I do. And but I did get episode 2 recorded. And that was a part 2 of the interview with Michelle Gross, because there was so much information that she brought on episode 1 that after 2 hours we hadn't covered it all. So I had her come back and we talked about, Force Science Institute. We talked about a lot about the PR games that police stations or police departments play to, and the government in general, that they play to try and show people that, oh no, we're making changes and this is real reform, and it's all bullshit. And we talked about some of the methods they use and that sort of thing, and debunked that. We talked a little bit about Standing Rock and what's going on there and how it relates to the struggle, the actions the police are taking there. And I don't know, it was another great episode, mainly thanks to Michelle. And that just came out, and I'm working on a great guest for a great next episode. I'm not going to say what it is until things are, confirmed, but that should be coming out. That should be coming out in 2 weeks. I'm going to try to be more on schedule going forward. So,
yeah, those were both awesome episodes. I listened to them. I learned a lot from them.
That's what I'm getting from a lot of people.
Yeah, I know we did some of the clips on the first show. We still have more to go, but yeah, people are really responsive to the clips on the different issues. Like, that show is really, I learned a lot from it. I guess my next show is my non-objective opinion. I did one this week. It was with Serena Shim's mother and father, Lee Shim and Judith Poe. It was a really good episode, I think, because we haven't previously heard too much from her father, if at all. So it was nice to get his perspective and just his total love and respect for his daughter. It really is touching and amazing.
Yeah, that was a great show.
Yeah. Well, and chiming in on that, like, we feel it's so important to really tell the human story. Everybody knows the hashtags, right? Everybody knows the end bit, but there's so much more than that. We're talking about real people here, real lives and real contributions, or, missed chances to contribute when we're talking about the, very unfortunate cases of younger folks. When you get that, it's irreplaceable, somebody's story like that that's so personal.
Yeah, we had a lot of technical issues due to the Skype coming from Lebanon to the U.S. to everything. So it was a hassle, but it came out pretty good. The next thing we got to talk about real quick is the People's Database that we're working on peoplesradiounited.com. It's going very slow. It's a ton of work, so please bear with us. It'll be out hopefully in the next month or two. And like I said before on the last episode, it's going to be really just bare boned at first, and it's up to you guys, wherever you are, to help us start filling in all the areas, because we have a whole world, tons of cities and states and countries, and we can't do it alone. We need your guys' help. So if you want to support the station, once you see that come up, the best way to do it is start going to your area and getting us that information on like hospitals and activist thing. Just you'll see everything on there that we need, and whoever could help with that would be awesome.
Well, we're absolutely looking forward to contributing the educational resources, the 101 how to do certain things, or so it's your first protest, or so I don't understand this whole Twitter game, all that I think, is going to be, again, a whole load of work. But, I'm really looking forward to getting the team on that for you guys to be able to disperse some valuable information to folks, because you know how much we care about education.
Yeah, DenMom's been a big, huge help behind the scenes with us lately. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for people who don't know you and tell them a little bit about what you do with the Team DenMom thing?
Team DenMom, we're a whole bunch of crazy bears, mama bears. We're not actually bears. Actually, on the internet, nobody knows we're really wombats. But anyway, no. Team DenMom is... it's a backline support system that it seemed was really lacking in the movements in general. It started with Black Lives and just grew from there, because the thing is that our whole process is based on consensus. Like, there's not ever going to be complete unanimity about anything. There's no candidate, there's no person, there's no issue that we all agree on, but we can all agree that people need support, whether they be victims or families of victims or people out in the field that, don't got people to check on them or whatever it is. Somebody needs a hug at the end of the day or a cup of coffee, and we got somebody in their area that something we're going to provide. If they're getting harassed, we'll help them to deal with that. If they don't understand how to do something, we'll help them get hooked up with the tech or the intel that they need. The whole point is that there's a lot of people out there feeling isolated and alienated, and that's death, That's death to a person, that's death to the movement. And there's intersectionality of how can I put this? Of interests. The goals of social justice at their very core of human rights are essentially the same. And yes, there's a lot of debate as to how it should be executed. There's a lot of debate about tactics. There's a lot of debate about where the priorities lie and who comes first and all of that. But, when you can just sit down and agree that people are people and people need to be respected, people need to have the freedom to be themselves and do what they need to do in life, want to do in life, be who they are in life, then that's where we come in. Because me and mine, we like to sit there and say, all right, you're a person, we're a person. How can we help you? We truly believe it is a pleasure to serve. And so sometimes, and of course, a show like this, I might speak from the values of the team. But right now, I'm looking forward to kicking my shoes off and just ranting and raving about some issues for a change, because we try to be very well behaved. We are a high road type of crew, but that does not mean we are immune to having opinions.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you want to go into what you guys were doing at the Women's March real quick, or you want to?
Oh, sure, I can talk about that for a little bit. This is a little bit of a new thing that we're trying to kick off. We're creating some educational resources to see if we can't make this something that is a teachable, shareable buddy system platform. Everybody who's been out anywhere is probably familiar with the notion of legal observers, where we're talking about lawyers and law students and things like that are going to go out and make sure that the law as such is being upheld, and if arrests are made, things like that they're observing what's going on according to the tenets of the law. Now, that's one side of things, and that's important. But human needs are also important and don't necessarily always align with just the strictures of the law. So at the Women's March, being that it was going to be something of a sort of calmer action, more of a rally than some of the other type protests that we might have been out at before, we kicked off the notion of a conscientious observer. So it's a buddy system, 2 people minimum go out with 1 person minimum off-site backline, thank you, Tim, to be a referral point in case data goes down or we need a research done for some reason, something goes off. And the notion is to see to it that people are there to observe what's going on, to make certain that if something appears to be about to go down, that people have information about that it gets out onto the network so that people can be safe. We also made sure to put out a lot of resources prior to and during that action so that people who have not necessarily been out before are not necessarily familiar with the protocols of how to survive a protest. So we're there with resources and pamphleture and what have you to educate folks that wish to be educated. We are there with medical supplies in case somebody, it could be anything from a terrible run-in to a paper cut, but we want to be ready to help those who need help by whatever means we're able to provide. And that includes also staying through to the very end of that event to make certain that people actually manage to disperse peacefully and to get home, because a lot of people make plans how to get someplace, don't necessarily make plans how they're going to get out of that spot. So there's a whole process, a whole gear list, a whole everything that's going into the planning of how this can be a teachable, expandable system, but it seemed very successful. We were able to navigate the event very smoothly. We dealt with people who were there in attendance as protesters. We were dealing occasionally with police, asking questions, inquiring as to what had gone down in a certain spot that looked like it was about to kick off, but then didn't, and just trying to assess the temperature of the protest throughout the day, and it seemed to give a sense of validity, being a part of but separate from the event per se. I don't know if that exactly makes sense. Like I say, this is a work in progress, but we're very pleased with how that went, and we're going to be continuing that in some of the upcoming marches in, because there's just so many, right? March and April is like, yeah. I don't know when we're going to sleep, because there's a lot to do, but we're getting our boots back on because there's a lot of field work to be done, and that's not normally our deal, but we do what we got to do to keep people safe. That's just how we roll.
Yeah, you guys do an awesome job, and you're building it up the right way from, starting from the ground, working up, making sure there's no problems, and ironing out all the bugs as you go. Hey, Steve.
Yeah?
Did you get a response from Trump about the boxing match?
No. Trump doesn't seem to want to step up to this. He's being a snowflake.
I thought it was going to be a major
pay-per-view
event. So, yeah, since we're go ahead.
Oh, yeah, that was I would love for Trump to get in the ring with me and talk smack to me instead of women and cripples from a safe distance, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Trump, the last couple of
weeks. Speaking as a nominally crippled woman, I think I could take him. I'm just saying, I felt a little pointed there, Steve. Do I have to come up and arm wrestle you the next time I'm in the area?
Oh, it's on.
Okay,
it's on.
That's a date.
All right, arm wrestle for a pitcher of beer.
That means we win no matter what, right?
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah, so what has Trump been doing lately? He's been deporting a lot of people. He's been taking Nazis and white nationalists off the terror watch lists. He's been
detaining people as well as deporting people who are here legitimately. Came in and stole some of my neighbors just a couple weeks ago, fronting as police when they was not.
Wow. Who were they?
Well, it's my old neighborhood. They're not people that I knew specifically, but the neighborhood that I used to live in was very heavily Latino, and so there was a lot of people you could say kept themselves to themselves. So those that were friends, and so through friend of a friend, I got that news that it was somebody that I had known in passing, and they got yanked at a routine quote-unquote traffic stop and detained an hour away from the city where they lived for quite some time. The girlfriend left unattended and all the rest of it, and truthfully, I don't even know if anybody knows what the status is at this point. That's not even counting what's going on in other parts of the country. I heard about a lot of issues with this. There was a dreamer, I believe, in Seattle, and there's rumor that somebody maybe got yanked out of or snatched out of a hospital, about to have surgery or something like this. I mean, like, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Like, some seriously nasty stuff. There was legitimate photography of a domestic flight from, I think, San Francisco to JFK 2 days ago with ICE outside going, "Your papers, please."
Yeah,
yeah.
History tells us that it's not good when they start demanding people's papers.
No. The last time that was done was communist Russia.
Also, Nazi Germany.
Like,
yeah.
Well, that was
communist Russia was never the friendliest place either.
Right. Yeah. It's never.
Steve, you're breaking up pretty bad. Can you check your signal real quick?
Come back to us, Steve. If you fade away, we can never arm wrestle.
Yeah.
That would be bad. Is it better now?
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah, there was also a woman who got picked up by ICE who had lived in the country 17 years and worked. And the way they framed it with her was she was a felon convicted of identity theft. And what this identity theft was she had to work here, so she needed a fake ID to be able to work. And all the Trump supporters and the white nationalists and all these people are like, well, see, she's a criminal, she's a felon, she deserved to go back. They don't see she just wanted to work and feed her family, and that was the way to do it.
From the positive news perspective, though, like I'm loving so much seeing how many people are fighting back. I mean, like the day after, like that one person in Maryland got yanked, like hundreds of people are out on the street to say not one more. And now, like, I read an article just earlier today or yesterday night. People in New York City are debating the possibility of how to make minor offenses, like minor criminal offenses, not be the sort of thing that's going to get somebody yanked by ICE, because that's a very common tactic to grab somebody on a traffic stop or to grab somebody on something very, very minor. Like, we're not talking like felony identity theft, but like just the smallest infractions, library card, whatever, right? So that might be exaggerating. Point being, like, there's a lot of people both on a street and a legislative level going like, that's unacceptable. How can we mitigate this effect through legitimate means? And I think it's very heartening with all this going on. Like, I have to find a good thing, like every single day. I have to go like, what's the best part of all this crap today? How is resistance really working? And it seems to be like making a dent from here, here and there.
Yeah. Why do you think all these people are upset now about Trump when all this stuff has really been going on, just a little bit lighter form of the same fascism under Bush, Obama, and all the previous administrations, each one getting worse and worse. But nobody really fought back over Bush or Obama as much as they are now. Not that many people.
In my personal opinion, I would say that things get to a certain level of, it's like, okay, imagine like a whole big family is having a Thanksgiving dinner or whatever, and they're all in the house, and like the kids are off in one room, and the guys are probably off watching football in another room, and classically speaking, like the ladies are all in the kitchen doing their thing. And I know this is a very stereotype thing, but a lot of families end up like this. And it's like, so in the living room, something happens in the game, and the guys get louder, and so everybody else has to get louder to compensate. And then like somebody goes, "Oh my God, did you hear about the wedding that's going to happen?" And so the kitchen gets louder, and then the whole house gets louder to compensate, and the volume just keeps going up and up and up until it's suddenly everybody's shouting, right? And I feel like that's kind of how it's been going. Is like a lot of people have been raising their voices for a long time, and the people that can hear it could hear it. But this whole situation over the last election cycle and the degree of unbridled, racist, misogynist, just unbelievably bigoted, Islamophobic, anti-LGBT, et cetera, rhetoric that came out. I mean, it was so bald-faced, in-your-face, crazy that you have all these people that was like they were snoring in bed, just like woke up with a start because there was a big boom outside their house, and they went, what the fuck, man? Oh shit! I gotta do something about that. This is my neighborhood. Yeah. Meanwhile, out on the street, you got some people being like, "Yeah, we've been here. You wanna? No, you can join. It's cool, but like, let's just talk about how to do that right, just for a second, And that's the important thing, I think. When I talk about education, I don't care. Again, this is my personal opinion. I personally do not care what got somebody woke. When it hits home for a person is when it hits home for a person. There's people at every level that, or every breakdown of demographic that came to the party late. And that's fine, because sometimes it has to hit you in your own heart in a certain way to make you need to do something. The trick is to take a breath and learn from the people who already been there for a minute. And, it's hard sometimes to even want to take that breath because you're so angry or you're so just viscerally ready to go. But, that's part of that conscientious observer thing, because again, with the Women's March, we knew there was going to be a lot of people out there that had not ever been to a single protest in their whole life, even a really calm one. And we want to make sure that those people knew how to get in and get out and be safe while they were there. And so, yeah, like people are going to come to it in their own time. And sometimes it just has to get real, real loud right outside their bedroom window.
Yeah. Did we lose Steve?
I think we might have.
Hang on.
I talked his ear off. Oh, God.
I'll get him right back.
I killed him.
All right, we got Steve back. Sorry about that. So, yeah, you were just talking. I'm a little bit different as far as protesting.
You're a little bit different in general, I think. Just saying.
Yeah, I tend to be trying.
But then so are we.
People told me we were protesting Nazis before. People told me I was worse than them because I'm always trying to get past the police line and get to these people. And sometimes I have support, and sometimes I have everybody saying, "Stop it! Stop it! It's horrible what you're doing." So yeah, it's pretty. People like we were talking about on Steve's show, both episodes, they really play a game with us about good protesters, bad protesters, what's acceptable and what's not. And that's a way to cause a lot of division.
And we need to put all that aside.
And I'm
usually I think that's just a recipe for havoc. I mean, seriously, there is always going to be somebody who disagrees with the tactic. There's always going to be somebody. And no matter what, like, oh, it should be peaceful, but not like that. Oh, you should get more excitable, but not like that. So, like, why critique?
Yeah, I know. I've had people tell me with a megaphone, like, if you're going to keep doing that, we'll shut the whole protest down. The police said you need to stop. And I'm like, who cares what the police say? Are you here to do what the police say? We're here because the police murdered somebody. Why are you going to listen to the police? And then they want to start this big argument publicly. And I'm like, I'm not with this. Whatever. I'll just shut up. It's just, I don't understand how this works. And it's always like that. I mean, maybe I'm a horrible protester.
I don't know if you're a horrible protester, but this comes back to like why we make a distinction between the notion of legal observer and conscientious observer. Because we're not out to police anybody else's tactics. We're out to see to it that, shit goes down smooth in whatever way that looks like for a particular kind of action. That like whoever can be kept safe is kept safe. Whoever gets arrested or whatever, we know their names. We can figure out where they got to, all that stuff. Where a legal observer is concerned about the law, we're concerned about the people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
So like that's what you're saying is very similar. It's like, we're here to protest the police, so why do you want to be all...
bow down for them? It's ridiculous.
Exactly. I mean, but again, there's always going to be somebody who disagrees with a tactic. You're being too crazy. You're being too calm. Like, oh man, they've got a guy taking a knee. That's the wrong kind of peaceful. Like, come on. Like, within and without the movement, there's going to be criticism.
You guys, I've seen people hugging police, shaking their hands at protests. Like, come on now. These people killed one of us, and you out here like they your buddies and stuff. It's crazy. It's insane.
Yeah, and that it caused a lot of strife in some of the... I mean, I got a lot of reports from other of the women's marches, actually, that in some cases, because, the women's marches were, in many cases, I would qualify them as rallies, not so much protests. They were sanctioned, they had permits, you got all these people out, like, with their grandmas and whatever, and babies. So, I mean, it's a pretty safe environment because, who's going to tear gas all the white ladies? Like, let's not play games about that. And a lot of speeches. And in some cities, you had some people up there thanking the police for being all respectful and nice and cool and stuff during a protest there. But it's like, yeah, today, like last week or last month or 6 months ago when you weren't here, like, this is not how it went. And you're like minimally hurting a lot of people's feelings by saying that from the podium right now. Minimally hurting some feelings. In fact, you're alienating and insulting a lot of people's lived experience by saying that in that way, in that place.
Yeah. And I think trivializing the issue as well. It's like, it's no longer such a serious issue what the government is doing if we're like thanking the government for letting us protest. I mean, the fuck?
That's what I'm saying. Who needs a permit to protest? You can get the hell out of here with that. If I'm gonna protest, I'm gonna walk out in the street and protest. Whoever's with me is with me. Whoever's not, that's on them. I've been to protests. I believe they might have had a permit. I mean, one of them was all these Democrats with these signs. They wanted you to carry their sign. I said, I'm not carrying your sign. I ripped their sign up, flipped it outside, and wrote what I wanted on it. They were furious, but I didn't care. I wasn't here for you. I'm here for what I'm doing.
Well, see, that's one of the quirks in particular about DC is that you really can't have a major gathering in DC without a permit, or it's like automatically a very large problem. Just because of the nature of DC. I mean, the whole place is federal, so it's that's a pretty unique situation. But yeah, I agree with you overall.
Yeah, DC. I learned a lot about DC in this last year, covering things like just helping you guys with the Women's March and getting call-ins from the Million Mask March. Yeah, it's really different than anywhere else I've been to, and I think it is because it's all federal.
Yeah, because it's not technically a part of any state. It's all federal land. I mean, like, that's a federal trash can, that's a federal building, that's a federal street. You're walking on Fed turf, and you're very, very close to a lot of high security buildings, kind of wherever you go in the places that a protest would happen. So everything is just enormously different than it would be in any other city.
Yeah, they charge those guys with federal crimes instead of just destruction of property and stuff.
I am in no way surprised by that because, again, federal trash can. Like, it might just be a trash can, but it's theirs. And yeah, I mean, like, when I saw those cats get arrested, I'm like, oh, they're in so much more trouble than they even realize. Like, if they're used to being in, anywhere else, this is going to be a whole new rodeo.
Yeah, and one of the issues I have is a lot of these cats lately are like, don't film us, you know what I mean? And here's the thing, I mean, from my experience with Antifa, they're awesome, and they're well organized, and if somebody comes to a protest to do something, maybe that the others might not consider legal or whatever, they should have a mask on from the beginning or a bandana or something, because there's going to be, anytime you're at a protest, there's cameras everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
And it's up to you to cover your face. I don't understand that. You can't film us. Don't do this. Don't do that. Most Antifa want to be filmed. They want people to see what they're doing because it stands out and it shows that people join us. You know what I mean? We can all do this. But a lot of these
also comes down to like basic expectation of privacy. If you're in a public place, you have no expectation of privacy under the law, and frankly, outside the law, should have no expectation of privacy. Period. Because, like, you know what? If you're going to talk some like squirrely business at a coffee shop somewhere, everybody in that coffee shop has a possibility of hearing you talking about your personal business. So, like, no expectation of privacy, right? Like, if you want to be private, make yourself private from go. I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, in the old days, we used to mask up way out the way and show up there ready to go. Like, nobody's not wearing masks, whether it's Sky Fox masks. Back then, we didn't have those, just bandanas and beanies and ski masks and stuff. Because we were going there to bash Nazis. That was the whole point of going. You know what I mean?
Well, see, and that's when that sort of thing works. Is like if that's your tactic, and again, like we are neutral on tactics, or at least I am right now, because I'm speaking for myself. You look at the very famous Nazi punch from DC, right? The Spencer punch. Glory be to that. Oh, hashtag punch a Nazi.
Yes.
The thing that was so very slick about that whole situation, in my opinion, is you've got a guy, fairly well covered. He dives in real slick. He dives out like a ninja, and boom, his friends are all there, and he vanishes. Right back into the thick of the crowd because he blends. That doesn't work if you didn't blend from the beginning, right?
Well, that's the point of Black Bloc. Everybody dresses all in black. Everyone looks the same. You can blend right back into your own crowd.
Precisely.
Plus, it looks scary, and because the pigs are out there trying to look scary with all their military gear, and it looks scary when they can't see your face. I mean, these are the common police tactics they use forever. The glasses, the sunglasses, to try to intimidate you, and so they look more authoritarian. And I remember when I was younger, I would put sunglasses on and stare right back at them, and they get furious. Take the glasses off. Take your glasses off. I mean, they'd literally snatch them off my face a couple times. They hate when you do that. When you use police tactics back at them, and even in a small way up to big scale, oh my God, they get furious. Because it intimidates them. They're just humans like us. And they're really
I think anybody who's ever been even like a little bit subcultural can relate to that. Even if you have no run-ins whatsoever with police, right? Like if you were a punk back in the day or a goth kid or whatever, right? And you're going around with your spikes or, and you're crazy covered in makeup or whatever. Like, I admit, that was me. And, I walk down the street and people are like, what the hell? All like, you're so scary. Why are you acting all scary and crazy? And actually, one of the greatest joys in my life was to be like stupendously nice and polite to these people. Like, oh man, like, it just makes me happy to dress like this. Like, can I hold that door for you? And that would really screw them up. But the thing is, it's just that you're right. There's that certain sort of uniform, that personal armor that people instantly are going to find intimidating. And as you say, the police force is a body of human beings who are susceptible to the same psychology as any other human being.
Yeah, since we're on the subject of protests, let's talk real quick about what the government is doing in many, many states. We touched on it briefly on Steve's show yesterday.
Oh, yeah, the whole, like, having to ask for permission going to a whole nother level, right?
Well, they're saying, there's a couple of things. There's asking for permission. You have to have permits to do marches in some places. Some places are saying if you show up to a town hall meeting and yell, it's considered violence, and they won't. And
Arizona is saying that planning a protest could be considered racketeering. So,
and they're also saying a lot of places are starting to do these anti-mask rules, and a couple of states I even heard are giving police human rights, like they're a race of people that deserve special human rights.
Yeah, the Blue Lives laws, which incidentally, that's not just a state level thing. Like, I'm still trying to run down the exact details, but, we've got these executive orders in the quote unquote Blue Lives Matter vein, which, would have federal bearing. And that's a little bit alarming in itself.
I'm just
wondering.
By a little
bit, I mean, oh dear.
I'm just wondering if this is really going to scare people off of speaking up and practicing their First Amendment right to free speech to go up against the oppressive government, because now that people are standing up, they want to shut it down more than ever. And I'm just hoping people realize this is our right, whether it's illegal supposedly or not. No, the Constitution says it's our right. We can do what we want. And we outnumber them. If we show up in big enough numbers, they're going to back down. I've literally seen police back down. Down south, there was a huge protest. We had like 60,000, 70,000 people. Immediately, they brought all the black cops up and put them in the front. So, like, we weren't going to attack black cops, supposedly. And these cops had little badges saying, we support you, trying to look all cool. They looked terrified. And we're screaming, rush the courthouse, rush the courthouse. And the cops, oh my God, the terror in their face. They could have not done anything. The people that stopped it were a bunch of protesters who had microphones and megaphones that were like, no, we don't want violence today. I'm talking about freeing prisoners. It wasn't violent. We're going to go up in there either way and get these people out of there. These are our people they had locked away. But nobody's for that
I mean, there's
stuff.
a place for de-escalation, But, it just... The whole thing is a very intricate dance, Any action kind of has its own rhythm, and it's a very intricate dance between escalation and de-escalation.
Yeah, but there's been times we pulled our people back from the police because we outnumbered them. and they couldn't arrest anybody that day. Our people got snatched back through the crowds.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's how you have to do it sometimes. And people can't be scared out there. That's the thing. They know the people are terrified. And they bring in all this stuff. Sometimes that's why I'm like a supporter of some of this stuff, you know. Sometimes you gotta push hard against those that are trying to take everything you have. Because singing them away and all this hasn't worked in the past, in my opinion. But I could be wrong. I'm wrong a lot.
Well, here's where I'm at on this whole thing.
On,
oh, sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
I didn't hear you.
That's just all I was going to say, is that I think Tim is spot on with that. You know, I mean, this isn't, you know, I don't know. This is really serious shit we're dealing with. We're dealing with an increasingly hostile and violent state. And I mean, Christ, in the last 4 weeks, it's escalated. You know, the state's violence and oppression in the last 4 weeks has escalated more than it did in the 4 years prior. You know, this is not a time for, you know, this is not a time for backing down. This is not a time for, you know, letting them scare us. I mean, it's a time for us to sit and say, well, if we get to go home at night, but at any time, police could just kick in our door because they don't like us, or they want to say they think we're suspicious of something. Are we really free? You know, we might as well be in prison at that point. So fuck it, hit the streets, you know, get your ass thrown in prison. It doesn't make a difference.
Well, and this I do agree with completely, because honestly, like, looking at history, right? Regardless of what people think they're doing right now, whether it's just like, oh, I'm just talking on Twitter, right? I'm just talking on Facebook, right? Well, guess what? There's a thread on that. There's a track on that. People know who you are in some cases because you're not being too subtle about it, or maybe you don't want to be subtle about it. That's cool. But the thing is like, after a certain point of the escalation of fascism, anybody who speaks like that is an enemy of the state. And that is a fact. Because it goes from hashtag the resistance to the bloody underground, we need to find an old school letterpress resistance. You know? Like, look at France and Denmark in the 40s, right? Because that's just how things go after a certain point. And if things do continue at this pace, that is where we will end up. And every single person who is a dissenting voice will be a threat. So that whole kicking in the front door thing becomes a very real possibility for anybody who has a history of saying, this ain't cool. I don't stand up for this. I'm going to stand against this 100% every single day. And, you know, so I am personally like a big proponent of being respectful in discourse. But at the very same time, I make a big distinction between that and just being polite, because I think we are all out of time to be polite.
Exactly.
You know, be respectful of other people. Be respectful of other people and their tactics and their opinions and what have you, to the point that is sensible, to the point where they show themselves as not worthy of respect. But we are all out of time to be polite about these issues, because things are moving at a pace that is unheard of. I mean, this age of information, the way that it benefits us benefits them too. It benefits both sides. Every tactic that we got, they got. Every access that we have, they have. Maybe different ones, maybe more, sometimes maybe less. But like, the fact is, like, we're reliant right now on, like, these are the two things that scare me right now. One, we are reliant on a series of types of infrastructure that are unprecedented and valuable. But if they were to fail, we don't have the old infrastructure anymore. People don't have landlines or payphones and things like that. You know, if you had a situation, like, most of our networks are scattered around the country, if not the world. So if we were to lose what we have, we would be in very serious trouble. And I believe it is absolutely time to start taking those networks to real life. If you do not already have connections in real life where you can reach them, if you do not have things on hard copy, do it. Do it yesterday. Make sure that you have a safe thing that you can dispose of quickly if necessary, but that you have a way to reach the people that you need to reach, to get to them physically if you have to, because it's been a month. It has been a month, and look where we are. Like, you know, by summertime, like, we could all be in basements going, shit, man, I really miss talking to Tim. It's been ages. I hope he's not dead. I hope I don't die tomorrow. Like, you don't know. And I know that sounds paranoid, but like, look at the fact that it's been a month and where we're at and how fast things move in an information age. And that information could get cut off and we're screwed. Now, that's one topic. And I'm going to go very quickly into the other one because I don't want to be the one talks off the ear of everybody here. But regardless of what tactics, regardless of what we're talking about here, I'm not even necessarily worried about whether people can be scared to do this or that. At this pace that everybody's working, I mean, exhaustion sets in, man. Exhaustion. Spiritual, physical, emotional, psychological exhaustion is real. Like the people who are on the more legislative page, the phone calls are already tapering off to like a third of what they were 2 weeks ago. And that's just people who make phone calls and write postcards, right? So like people going out in the streets and stuff. Like I said, there's a protest every single weekend in April in DC. I can't speak for anywhere else because those are just the big ones that come over my waves. But like, man, there's only so much time in a day. There's only so much energy a person has. And it is alarming to think of how quickly we could all become very depleted. And that's where self-care and those personal networks also come very much in handy and are essential to survival.
Yeah. I mean, I think if they shut off everybody's communications, I've thought about that before. Like, it's a possibility in the future, maybe even the near future, who knows. But I think that would be something that would just trigger people to really just go crazy. It's like I interviewed Ray Johansson a while back. And he was saying, like, you know, at the rate things are going, people will be so poor. I mean, our government's getting looted from the top. These people are all big bankers, big corporate people, don't want people to make any money. They want all the money filtered to them. And he said when people don't have food on the table and can't feed their families, there's going to be blood in the streets. People are going to rise up. And I'm thinking it's the same kind of deal with if they cut off all communications or try to do something like that, you're going to have protests like you've never seen before.
But I think first you're going to have mass confusion because anybody who's ever lost their telephone, you know, lost their cell phone or had it die on them unexpectedly can tell you, like, how much they realize they rely upon that little device to get through the day. Like, how many phone numbers they don't have memorized, how many bits of information in their calendar or whatever else they didn't realize was all stored in their pocket. So I think, you know, it could be a little crazy when people suddenly are both furious and really, really confused at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a little older, maybe. There wasn't always smartphones and cell phones in my lifetime. I remember when there were payphones and pagers and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, me too, but they don't have them no more.
Yeah,
like,
but I think...
When's the last time you saw a payphone?
I mean, if I knew the government cut off all our communications, I'd just be in the streets riling people up. Like, let's just go, just tear shit down. And I think a lot of people would do that because they'd be furious.
I will walk cross country to find you, Tim. I will do it.
There you go. I'm not hard to find. Shagwell, you still here?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
He's planning how to beat me at arm wrestling.
Yeah.
Even thought.
Oh yeah. Yep. I think DenMother, you hit it right on the head when you talk about being prepared. I think a lot of things are going to happen, and we need to be prepared for them. One is going to be that somehow, you know, cutting off the flow of information, and it's going to be hard to communicate. I see that coming. I also think, you know, as protest gets criminalized, maybe we should think about, well, what other things can we do? You know, should we stop protesting? Hell no, you know, but what other things can we do as well that they're not outlawing yet? And now it's my turn to say, well, I might sound paranoid here, but
people have been saying that a lot lately, you know?
What's that?
I said people have been saying that an awful lot lately, I've noticed.
Yeah. Well, here's mine. I think it's time to prepare for insurgency. I think people need to start learning how to fight. People need to start learning how to use a gun. People need to start learning how explosives work. People need to be ready for insurgency, because it might come to that. Certainly hope it doesn't. I'm not saying learn this stuff so you can just use it willy-nilly, but, be ready for, be ready for a crackdown.
Well, I'm a big proponent of that kind of preparedness just in general, so I'm all for it. I think that everybody should know everything from how to start a fire to how to change a flat tire in general. They should have a bag in the trunk of their car in case they get stuck in bad weather. So that's just on an everyday basis. So when we're talking about a situation like this, I'm right there with you.
DenMom, when the shit goes down, we'll definitely teach you how to start a fire.
Oh, I can start some fires.
Oh, we could start a lot of them all over any corporate building.
Well, that or just go on my side of the mountain. I'll have a tree. I'll be eating acorn flour and then running a little printing press out the under a little cave. It'll be great. Look out for my pamphlets. They're gonna be killer. They're gonna be so lit. And they'll make great kindling. I'm just telling you right now. For those people who want to start a fire someplace else, they're gonna be really flammable.
Yeah, save your Galaxy.
Sweet.
Like your Galaxy S7 Notes, whatever those ones that keep blowing up are. One day they might be needed.
That's right. Don't bother with the recall, everybody. The world might be coming to an end. # we all gonna die.
Yeah, I had something hurtful happen to me the other day I think it was on Twitter. Somebody called me a liberal.
Somebody was mean to you on Twitter, Tim?
They called me
Who
a
do I
liberal.
need to hurt? They called you a liberal?
Oh my God, that hurt me so bad. I was like, how can you call me a liberal? I mean, of course they were some kind of racist person, but I'm far from a liberal. I think a liberal is a right-wing person that pretends not to be. I don't know what I am, but I'm definitely not a liberal. I'm an anarchist.
I've always got liberals calling me a conservative, and I've got conservatives calling me a liberal, and I'm just whatever.
That was happening to me during the election. If I bashed Hillary, they say, "Oh, so you're for Trump." If I bashed Trump, "Oh, so you're for Hillary." And I don't know why these people can't grasp. Yeah. I'm for neither of these scumbuckets.
I'm taking back the word radical personally, because I feel like that word has got a bad rap over the last forever. It's a radicalize this person, and then it's you know what? No, radical simply means what it means. It means kind of above and beyond the thing. It means it's novel. It's out there. It's kind of crazy, but it's different and it's extreme. But it doesn't have to be dangerous or bad. It's just out there and extreme. And I'm taking it back. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I noticed that I think it was a Million Mask March. We didn't have a big show up in LA because LA's kind of dead sometimes on protesting. But we had these dudes show up, and they had knives and nunchucks and all these weapons. And basically,
did they know how to use them, or were they just
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I assume they were cops, maybe, or something, because their whole thing wasn't to go smash up property or bash cops. Their thing was to go find just civilians walking down the street and start attacking them. I'm like, first of all, we're anonymous. We don't attack people. What the hell? This is nonviolent here. And second of all, what the hell does attacking citizens get us? You know what I mean? These people you're just going to go find some old lady and some people and start beating them up? I mean, I'd be with you maybe on windows of banks and, you know what I mean, Walmarts and things like that, but just some people? That's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. I mean, it just blew my mind. And I know they were infiltrators, probably some kind of law enforcement trying to get people to do something. But it just blew my mind. Like, what the hell?
And again, that's where the word gets a bad rap, because in the press they're going to call that some kind of radical blah, 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 blah. And it's no, that's destructivism and crazy and harmful to human beings, and that's not what we're about.
Yeah, I mean, I've never...
I'm trying to save lives here. That's literally what I'm trying to do, is save lives.
I mean, punching Nazis and really crazy, right-wing people that talk about genocide and stuff and attacking them, whatever, going into country clubs where they're having these big white supremacist meetings and just bashing everybody with bats, that's great. But just walking down the street and finding random people, you don't even know what these people believe. You don't know anything about them other than I'm going to hit them because they're here. That's what these cats were trying to do, and that pissed me off so much. It infuriated me that day. Just another
Absolutely.
reason. And I don't understand. And you know, I'm thinking sometimes these you know, because any decentralized group, I know with Anonymous all the time, we've had terrorist threats in our name, most likely done by the FBI. So many people in there, you know, supporting this and that just totally, you know, it's not with Anonymous general consensus of what the majority believe. And I think Antifa
Right.
and all these decentralized groups, they all get, even Black Lives Matter. I was talking to
Mm-hmm.
somebody he's a guest. He's gonna be another guest. He has an issue with Black Lives Matter, and I was explaining to them it might be a 501c organization with a few of them, but most of the cats out here, they're not with that organization. Black Lives Matter is a slogan because to them, Black lives should matter. They're not
Yeah.
part of, and you know, they're decentralized. These cats just say we're going to do things on our own. So every time somebody does something and the news says it's Black Lives Matter, I don't take that as, you know, some big
Well,
official
see,
group any more than I take Anonymous or Antifa or anybody. When somebody does something heinous, generally it's either an infiltrator, some BS, or it's somebody trying to make them look bad.
or in some cases, it might just be an outlier, but I think you're making a very valuable
Yes,
point
a
that
group
bears
acting on their
repeating.
own.
Yeah, right. Because here's the thing that, like, and this comes back to the, like, so you just got here, what don't you know, right? Kind of thing. Or just how are things presented in the media versus how are they in real life? And one of the very most common misconceptions that we run into doing what we do, because, you know, Team DenMom, we work with all kinds of people. You know, we've got our own crew,
Yeah.
but we got a lot of affiliates and then just a lot of people that we work with or help or speak with, and they're just all across the board of the side of right, basically. And there's this really common misperception that anything that has a capital letter essentially is quote unquote an organization, because people understand the notion of an organization. They understand the notion of, like, oh, it's a nonprofit, it's the Red Cross, or it's the government, or whatever, like a body of people that abides by a series of rules that are, you know, either uniformly agreed upon or just enforced, right?
Yeah.
When you have a decentralized movement, which is more and more of what is happening, when you have things that are hashtags or are simply just the title of a movement as opposed to a body of people, Occupy, Anonymous, Black Lives Matter, things of this nature, there is no governing body. There is no sheet of bylaws to which everyone has signed off on. There's a consensus about how to operate within a certain set of parameters, because if you're in that mindset, you'll probably get on fine. But it's not, again, it's decentralized. That's the point. And so people speak about, like, oh, Anonymous has announced, as if every single member of Anonymous went, yes, we love that particular new announcement that has just made the airwaves. And that's insane to imagine that you would ask every single person who considers themselves an anon to agree on, like, yep, that sounds good. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I think it's important. It's very important for people who are sort of new to the world to understand that decentralized means exactly that. That there is no central governing body that says this is who we are and how we do, and there are going to be outliers, and there are going to be people who are fake, but for the most part, it's a consensus organization at the loosest possible definition of organization.
Yeah, I just hate that people, especially the pigs and the government, they don't understand that. They're always, who's the leader? Who's in charge here? Who's it? How the hell do I know? Nobody. But I know it's not you. But yeah, it just blows my mind. Like, they can't comprehend that. Go ahead, Shagwell. Sorry.
I was just going to say, you know, you had brought up people had been you ran into a thing where people had been encouraging, you know, just running down the street, beating up innocent people. And to me, it definitely, it sounds like infiltrators. I mean, this thing has been done, but I'm seeing a lot more of this infiltration shit going on right now. People trying to take action in a collective's name to and I believe almost all the time it's like some kind of law enforcement or, you know, somebody from the other side doing it. I think we're getting to a point where this is getting more and more common, and I think it's really time I encourage these decentralized organizations to start having conversations about, well, how are we going to deal with this? Because this is starting to happen a lot.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything new. I think it's more common as far as people know because we have social media and people are outing it more. But I mean, COINTELPRO,
right?
These cats invaded the Panthers. They invaded the AIM, American Indian Movement. They've infiltrated so many groups over history and try to destroy them. In some cases, they were successful. Yeah. I mean, even at the, I think it was the Republican or Democratic national conventions, maybe both. They had undercovers there pretending to be protesters. They had people dressed regularly on little scooters running people down, and hopefully the people would hit them, then they'd arrest them for assault on an officer. It's the standard crap they've been doing. Now it's just we're able to see it a lot better. And you know, I noticed on social media people will say, oh, here's an undercover, here's somebody you shouldn't trust, you know, all the time.
Can I throw out a potentially unpopular opinion?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not that I disagree, because you're right. All this stuff has a long and storied history in any kind of world that is heavily protestful. That is so not a word. But shut up! I can word. I make sentences good. Anyway.
It's an alternative word.
Yes.
Yeah.
An alternative word, and we're going to go with that for the moment. But no, in times of dissent and protest, absolutely, infiltration and all of this is a thing that happens. However, I'm going to go with, I think we may be seeing something that's a little bit new right now, which is possibly even just simpler than that. That, I believe, exists, but maybe not to the degree that simple ignorance exists. Because with social media being how it is, with the spread of information and the pace of the spread of information being how it is, and what people think they know about, say, again, we'll go with anonymous, because, you know, it's kind of an entity that has sort of a mystique about it. I think you've got just a lot of people going like, oh man, yeah, I want to get on this stuff. And it comes right back to that whole, like, I just heard the boom out my window and I stepped out my front door and into the fray, but I didn't pause to learn nothing before I did that. So without having some kind of friend or guide or anything that's attached to, like, no, seriously, like, we actually respect people and we prefer to not actually just, like, beat up grandmothers, you're gonna have some ignorant motherfuckers out there just being like, this is what we do, man, we just wreck shit. Or, you know, on the, like, other side of the equation, like, look at what happened with the early organization of the women's marches, where it's like you've got, like, a bunch of, like, well-meaning women who inadvertently appropriated some very charged language from movements of people of color and caused a lot of discord in doing so, because they're, like, very well intentioned but didn't do their homework. And, you know, that was almost catastrophic. And still there was a lot of discord between, you know, the people of color and white folk and other things, other marginalized communities within that, the subgroups of the women's marches. So that's, you know, a perfectly calm situation that still created havoc in trying to be successful by just not conversing with people who'd been around for a minute.
Yeah.
So I think ignorance is a very real factor that needs to be considered when we're talking about this sort of thing, because a lot of people might just step out their door and be like, I'm going to change the world, motherfuckers! And you're like, that's cute. Could you, like, pause to, like, read a few timelines first? Like, minimum. Just a couple. Couple smart folk. No, one or two things. Just that.
Yeah.
No, I just want to
I think that's a very good point.
You're right. I mean, I didn't think about, when you said that, I started going back to I've been doing this a lot of years. I've been protesting, I can't even count, but I know Soros owes me a crap load of back pay. But the thing is...
Yeah, like, I owe so much rent, man.
Yeah, that fool owes me because I hear he's paying protesters according to the right wing people. But
somebody was claiming like $1,500 per thing. Like that's like $78,000 a year right now. Like, come on, man. Like that's
yeah.
a lot of money I don't have in my pocket right now.
Well, no, but I mean, I was lucky because I was thinking, oh, I just started protesting and kind of learned as I went. But no, I was always lucky enough to have really old school, whether it was protesting for marijuana rights or protesting police. I mean, I hooked up with some big time people. Even coming into Anonymous, I came in with a really big time Anon at the time who kind of I had people to look out for me. So yeah, I mean it is good to have somebody inside these groups. I mean
Yeah,
even
like trustworthy mentorship is valuable.
yeah, even when
Back
we
in the
were
60s, they had boot camps, man. Like how to do a sit-in, how to survive getting hosed, how to, they did that in an organized fashion. But like just having like one or two smart friends who've been around for a minute, like you say, has a lot of value.
well yeah, I mean I had some cats that were Panthers, that protested back in the day
Mhm.
and stuff, and I had some, like I said, I had my cousin was a pretty big Anon at the time, and even the Antifa group we had back in the day just to go bash Nazis, real Nazis, the ones that were out there harassing Latinos at Home Depots trying to get work and stuff. I mean, we really were with some cool cats that taught us how to organize things and how the police worked. Like, you guys don't go as one group. You guys split up. You show power here, and when the cops get too much to handle, the next group does something over here to call the. I mean, we had them cops not knowing what the hell to do. They were running from block to block, couldn't figure shit out, and it was all planned. And I think people need to go back to that really fundamental. It's harder now because you're being monitored a lot easier, but there's ways to get around that. Just really go back
Yeah.
to the planning, saying Group A does this, Group B does this, have contingency plans. If the cops get one of us, nobody's taking any of us. Well, that's when we all unite and stomp out and get our people back. I mean, it's come to
Well, I
that
think
now.
planning and organization are just so invaluable no matter what you're doing. I mean, when we went out just to, like I said, the world's calmest street fair of a protest, it was like, okay, so here's the perimeter on our map that we have already prepared, printed out, in hard copy in case our phone should die. And, here's a staging point and there's a staging point and there's an emergency spot that we can get to if we really need to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like all the egresses and refuge points and rally spots that we might make more public to other people versus ones we wouldn't, in case we just needed to regroup. And again, this is just two people, right? Like there's no additional teams doing anything. We're just there to watch. But it still seemed like the thing to do because we learn from the same kind of cats, right?
How do you do that? Because I mean, I know I go to things sometimes, and I'm thinking as I go there, I'm going as a journalist, as press to go cover it. But eventually, I just end up protesting and holding a camera, kind of getting whatever my feet and stuff I'm filming at the time I'm doing whatever I'm doing. It's hard for me to. It's hard for me not to get involved. I get so mad, and I have to go start screaming it and trying to get past these lines and stuff.
How I personally do it is a lot like the tactic that those of us who have access to the Team DenMom Twitter feed deal with trolls in a way. Because it is really easy to get riled up. And first of all, going with a buddy that you trust. I mean, that's the essential thing. Is somebody who trusts you and that you trust and that knows you well enough to recognize that you're being triggered, or that like you running across the street might just be to take a cool photo or speak to a certain person and it isn't an emergency, but that they recognize if you are running across the street in a certain way, it might be an emergency and they should follow. And just that kind of thing. And communication is essential. But like, as far as how to stay calm with it is like, I detach to a certain point. I have to, and anybody who I allow to have access whatsoever to the Twitter has to be able to do it too. Because I mean, we've had people accuse us of the vilest things. I mean, anybody who remembers the little report that we gave on another radio show about a year ago remembers that we were accused of everything from being in the pay of organized crime to being white separatists, despite the fact that we ain't all white, to calling for a black genocide and stuff. And you know what? I when that one happened, it was a bad day, and I had the bad face on. And I was about to go off. But I took 10 breaths, and I sat down, and I put on my robot hat, and I call it playing Siri on Twitter. It's like, oh, I did not understand that comment. Could you repeat it in a different way, please? That joke did not seem funny to me. Could you explain why it is funny? You know, like, seriously, it's just like a super level of detachment. And so, like, on the one hand, to go and be an observer, like, you have to care about outcomes, but you can't care about specific outcomes or specific spots too heavily unless it is, like, you remember the one circumstance that happened, and it was like there was a big influx of police for no particular reason, and we didn't know why, and it needed to be monitored, and so we observed it from a safe distance and called and got backline, and then once it was cleared and nothing untoward had occurred, we went and researched what had happened so that if it came up, we would have an understanding of what had happened to the best of our ability. But rather than react or get in anybody's face, it was a matter of collectively going like, all right, this is our spot. Our spot? Good spot? Yes, good spot. Okay, we will stand here now. And it was us minding each other to make sure that nobody flew off the handle like a crazy person and, you know, did what might happen if we were on our own. That's where the buddy system is essential. Because to keep your cool, like, you kind of have to have that friend who can be like, dude, you're seeing red. I can see it because the red is up to your eyeballs. Like, take a step back. Take a breath.
Yeah, I know, like, one time I did pretty good. Most of the time I was covering it with the camera, staying away, you know, staying back from the main protest, because I really wanted to try just to cover it. And then this one woman was walking with a picture of her brother who was killed by the police, and these cops started laughing at it. And I lost it. I got all up in their face. From then on, I was protesting, didn't care about journalism anymore. That's what generally happens with me. Something will just set me off.
Yeah.
I gotta learn to do better, I guess.
Well, see, again, like, we all have triggers, right? Like, I'm telling you, like, during that particular moment in DC, I'm really not sure even right now if I was more upset at the Metro PD for rolling in like that without making themselves or their intentions plain, or at the actual people attending the protest because of the complete lack of situational awareness. I mean, you got people still cheering like it's Mardi Gras, right, going by, and there's 5 vans and 40 cops, and like in any other environment that would have been the start of mass arrests, right? And the only thing that happened was some people stepped out of the way of the vehicles coming in, like 4 people started to film, and about a dozen people were like, you know what, we're gonna bug and go get a coffee someplace not here. And the rest of everybody's just like, woo, stuff, I love your signs. And I was livid. I mean, You know what I sounded like. I'm like, this is what's happening, man. I couldn't even get a video to straighten out because my tech was all stupid and I didn't even care anymore. I'm like, whatever, it's sideways. This needs to be out there. Ah! But I had a buddy who was calmer than I was at that moment. And at other points in the day, it was the other way around. You know, like, you have to be able to put yourself in somebody else's hands sometimes and have them be able to say, like, seriously, no, like, take it back, like, 3 clicks, chill, I'm calling it. Walk away. Or whatever.
Yeah.
And you have to listen when they say that. That's the trick. You have to agree to that ahead of time and you have to stick to it. And that's the only thing I can do is I have to stage it in advance. Like, I'm going in this capacity and that's what I'm doing, and I'm going to listen to what I'm told by my friend and nobody else, and that's what it is.
Yeah. That's true.
That's a really good idea, actually.
Yeah, it is.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
I never even thought about that kind of thing before, but that's because at these events, I mean, like, cops will do this kind of passive aggressive thing where it's psychology, where they'll do something that, you know, conveys a threat of aggression, and they hope you react, and then they can say, but we didn't do anything, you know. And
anybody who's ever been out knows
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, it's okay. It's just, I was just going to say, you know, psychology is a big tool that they use. They use it when they stop you in a traffic stop.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they use it, and of course they're going to use it at protests. And I'm glad you're talking about it, because I think people need to be more aware of that fact that psychology is as big of, or even a bigger weapon than the actual weapons on their belt that they use against protesters.
And the thing is, too, that people need to realize is, like was being said in a different way earlier, is that same thing can be used by you. Like, if you are unflappable, that will screw some people up. If you just cannot be shaken, there is a certain type of person who's going to just be really freaked out by that. So if you set yourself up to just, like, detach in that way from go, and you stay like that, and you have your buddy to just, like, keep, like, I'm a big proponent of the buddy system. I really am. It's safety in numbers, one, and also just this little psychological backup thing. But if you can do that, like, not only are you wielding a very powerful tool against oppression, but being an island of calm is itself a de-escalation for those people who might fly off the handle themselves. Because anybody who's ever been out knows, like, all it takes is one person. It doesn't matter which side of the line they're on. They could be, you know, behind the shield or facing the shields. But it just takes that one person to, like, lose it. And everything can go from protest to, like, riot or worse in a second, because, you know, people can't even tell by the end of it where it all started sometimes, because just that one person did that one thing. And so if you can just be an island of calm, it's got a way of spreading sometimes. And there was a thing that I noticed when we were out as a pair. It's kind of like a facet of what I call tandem weirdness. You've got one person out doing a thing, then they're just a kook. But you got two people that look kind of similar and act kind of similar. Well, they're obviously on some kind of mission. You got two people walking down the street in gorilla suits. They're probably going to some kind of gorilla convention or whatever. That's their thing. So we had two people out dressed very similarly. We had little lanyards, or not lanyards, laminates that said, you know, Team DenMom, conscientious observer. So, like, ta-da, validity. And you know what? People bought into that. I was almost surprised to the degree, because it was an experiment. Like, I just printed them up, I laminated them, and we stuck them on ourselves and went, okay, this is what we are. And you know what? Like, people who wanted to talk about stuff from an educational perspective, when we're talking, like, just on a train, like, oh yeah, man, like, here's a Sharpie. You want to write some phone numbers on your arm? Here, borrow one of our Sharpies. Cool. Oh yeah, I'm learning a thing. Fantastic. And later, when we had to go and speak to the police officer, we're like, hey man, we're conscientious observers. We just saw this thing a couple blocks away. Do you know what's going on with that? And every single person we spoke to looked at us like we were a representation of legitimacy. Calm, functional legitimacy, which anybody who knows us would say is a laughable concept on a personal level. But functionally, in a protest environment, it works. Because together, we're stronger than either one of us could be apart. Left to my own devices, I could be a real liability, but not with the right person.
Yeah, that's good advice. Take somebody you trust to have your back. But you know, cops that psychology thing you guys are talking about, that works a lot of times. They're not really smart. I mean, for the majority, most cops, I've made cops cry just talking to them, you know, getting in their heads. I've made them really furious. It's just so easy sometimes. If you see the right situation, you can get into a cop's head really easy and just, you know, destroy his whole day, destroy his whole thought process. They've had to pull cops out of the line because I mess with their heads so much. I had one dude crying, telling him, what's your Mexican mother going to think when she sees these pictures on the news of you standing proudly in front of Nazi signs? You know what I mean? This was like a rookie cop. And he just teared up and started crying. I just kept going on and on, you know. What kind of sellout are you? What about your people? These cats want you dead. If they were in power, you'd be deported. You'd be put somewhere else, you know, just whatever. He started tearing up. They put this big Nazi cop, came in and tapped him out and took the place. That's a dude that cracked my ribs and when I got run over by the motorcycle and stuff that day. But I couldn't get into his head. But that one dude, I hope he thought about it, maybe quit his job and did something respectable other than be a stupid pig protecting Nazis for overtime. But, you know, I don't know.
But see, again, like that, yeah, I mean, that totally does work. Because, again, cops are people, right? They're susceptible to the same human psychology as anybody else. And it's the same thing that, like anytime you see like a quote unquote community leader get praised for their commendable actions in the course of a protest, like it was very common in a lot of the Black Lives protests of, the last couple of years when things got really big, and you'd have like, oh yeah, the Reverend so-and-so really brought things to a calm closing or something like that. And it's usually because they managed to get in people's heads and go like, your mama raised you better than that. Like whether it's a cop or some person who's about to like pitch a bottle at a cop, they'd be like, seriously? Like, what about respect? What about what we're really here for? And, these kind of tactics where you just like see through somebody's eyes into the back of their brain and go, I know how to ruin your day. Please don't make me do it, because I will.
Yeah, those people aggravate me a lot, because I don't see anything wrong with tossing bottles at cops and stuff. Because they, when we're out there, generally they did something wrong. They did something horrific. They did something murderous, or really abusive.
Oh, I'm not trying to debate the value of whether or not the bottle should be thrown. I'm just saying that psychological tactic will work regardless of what it is that whose head you're trying to get into,
But I'm saying those people a lot of times do some division because they back to the good and bad protester thing, Stop what you guys are doing over here. We want to be peaceful because of our religion or whatever the hell it is that they want to, and
the tactics police.
Yeah, and it's like, let people do what they want to do, If you can't, if you don't like what's going on, you can leave. I don't care how big a preacher you are, whoever you are, I know, because a lot of these people, they do it to get on the news, they do it to get support and stuff like that. They're not there for the same reasons. I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying a lot of them. They come with cameras, they come with all kinds of things. It's publicity for them. Even
in some cases, sure. I think though that like what needs to be understood is regardless of what a person's position is, like it doesn't always have to be a quote unquote community leader, but like this comes right back to like a point that we don't 100% agree on, basically, which is that like essentially like you're being the tactics police a little bit by saying that like somebody who's a proponent of complete nonviolence, even against the cop who's protecting the Nazi, is somehow being an asshole. And it's like,
no, I'm not saying. I'm saying.
Okay.
Wait, just real quick. What I'm saying is, they can be nonviolent, and that's fine. Do what you do, but don't tell us or somebody else how they need to do. I mean, we're all trying to go to the same goal. We're all trying to get the same thing accomplished. Who's to say your way's right or my way's right? We're not screaming, go with us and bash some stuff up and kick in the police line. You do your peaceful thing. Just let us do our thing and leave. Don't shame us for it. That's all I'm saying.
Well, that's understandable, I think. But I think it gets complicated if, like, okay, we're talking about, like, all y'all being on the same block against the same line of cops, and it's like you've got the nonviolent contingent and the, kick him in the head contingent all in the same mix. Like, the kick him in the head contingent could put a lot of the nonviolent people in a substantial amount of danger that wouldn't necessarily have occurred if everybody was on page nonviolent. Meanwhile, like it just creates a weird stew of personalities, is what I'm saying, and a potential for weird fallout when you've got division in a cluster like that. So I don't know. I think you're going to have people who are going to vocalize their opinions. You may have noticed I'm pretty vocally opinionated myself, but that doesn't mean you have to listen.
Yeah, I guess that goes back to the. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, this was something that Michelle Gross and I discussed when I interviewed her on ifoughtthelaw.info, and she brought up the St. Paul principles. Diversity of tactics separated by time and space. If you don't like what this person over here is doing, go do it your way somewhere else at a different time. It's I think that's really just the simple solution. When I show up to a protest, I always try to find out, okay, who organized this? What are they trying to do? How do they want to do it? And then I either go along with that, or I say, nope, this isn't how I want to do it, and I leave.
And again, that's situational awareness and preparedness. That's That's my whole jam right there.
Yeah, I like the separation thing, because then people could be with more like-minded people that want to do the same thing.
Or they can make an alternate point, like, now this was something that was pretty widely misunderstood, but the whole thing in Baltimore lasted for the better part of a week because, there was the actual day of the riots, then there was the curfew set in, and then, by the end of the week, people are protesting the curfew as much as anything else because the whole city was basically being told they had a bedtime and it was wrecking everything. And in a very predominantly white neighborhood, I want to say it was a relatively small number of people, somewhere between 20 and 40 people, staged a protest after curfew time at the same point in time when, all the real hardware and nasty guard are rolling in on the neighborhood that's been getting all the heat all week, right? And people made fun of these cats for like, oh, look at you and your little pansy-ass protest. No, the point they were trying to make is that they were still being politely asked, like, could you please just go home? When people were getting their faces smashed into concrete, a mile away. Because the type of response that they were getting was completely different than this other neighborhood that was predominantly black, that was considered bad, right? So, like, there you go, separation of space, but illustration of being at the same time, and two different tactics. I thought it was beautiful. When I saw the coverage, I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah,
but a lot of people were very confused about that, too. They're like, again, like I said, people were like, oh, these pussies, if they really meant what they're doing, they would have been down in the other neighborhood. It's like, they're making a different point.
Right.
I see. Yeah, I guess it's all a personal kind of thing. It's just sometimes it gets frustrating when everybody have a different plan, at every protest. You have so many different kinds of people and they all, so I guess that is the solution, Steve, just kind of separate them by time and space. Do your thing.
Yeah, and when you, if somebody put a bunch of work into setting up an event and they have a plan, it's like either go along with that or don't show up. If you think it needs to be done differently, gather a bunch of people who think the same way and do it differently at a different time and place or place. It's kind of, I don't know, to me, that's just a real simple solution. That's why I love those St. Paul principles, because it's just, it's like a real simple code that covers a lot of things and wound up saving a lot of people's asses at the Republican National Convention protests in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Steve, if you want to put those out to me, I would love to put those out via the platforms that Team DenMom uses, because we're all about education. Although I do have a question for you, like with that in mind, like that all sounds really great for a planned action, and there are many planned actions, of course. But I mean, we've all seen that in the wake of something dramatic, whether it be a police brutality situation or a police shooting situation, or more recently the just sudden massive turnout due to the immigration EOs, things like that. Like, what would be the application for an impromptu action? Because if there is no plan, if there is no organization, then how do you make that separation?
I think at that point, you just have to look at what's going on. I mean, there's you're going to kind of see a general consensus, everybody moving in a certain direction, and then just decide if you want to join them in going that direction or if you want to go do something else. I've been in those situations before where I showed up and it was like, okay, everybody's kind of doing this thing, and, no, that's not me. And, I just, in one case, I got together with a couple dozen people and we went and did a different thing.
That makes good sense.
Yeah.
I think one of the best parts of the St. Paul principles was no matter what, activists support each other, no matter what, I mean? I love that was my favorite part of it. Like all activists, don't snitch on each other, support each other, stand by each other, show up in court for one another, no matter what your tactics are. We're all fighting for the same goal. We're going to support each other 100%, no matter if we agree or not. And I love that part of it.
Yeah, and to clarify, that doesn't mean just keep your opinion to yourself. I mean, I've talked to activists about their tactics, and they've talked to me about mine. But that's like between us. We have a talk between us, and well, I don't think what you're doing there is a good idea, and here's why. Do what you will, but here's what I think. And then when other people ask, I don't talk about that discussion. I just say, well, that's not really my way. They're doing their thing, and I don't have anything to say about that.
Yeah. No, that also, that's actually very much in line with, again, with like sort of the conscientious observer and sort of how that even came about a bit, because I personally had some objections to some of the organization and methodology, et cetera, behind the Women's March, but it seemed important to be there as a witness to a historic event. It seemed important to be there for, again, the safety factor and educational factor and all the things that I wanted to do as the founder of this team. And so, yeah, it was made pretty plain, like, we are not attendees of this protest. We are not a part of this action per se, but we are here under our own aegis for our own reasons in our own way.
Yeah. And I think that's great. I love that. I mean, observers are something that we need at protests. We need people who are kind of stepped back and observing things, documenting things. So big hats off to you for doing that.
We're trying to spread it. I mean, as soon as we get a better plan and something that can be like, a shareable PDF explanation of how to do this thing, or be able to get out and workshop with people like this. Yeah, we're all for it. Like, it's a great intel gathering thing. It's so, we think it's really important. I'm so glad you agree. Thank you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We can talk about it more when we're not on the radio, because it seems like you might have some ideas and some principles that could be foundationally useful.
Yeah, absolutely.
To bore the listeners with.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I'm down with that. So, yeah.
Cool. Anyone else have anything else they want to bring up?
Good question, Tim. We've all gone quiet.
No, I'm just saying, I'm going to we'll wrap it up in a little while, so I'm just seeing what you guys want to bring up, because I think I brought up most of the topics so far.
I think most of the topics that you brought up were the kinds of things that were heavily on my mind, or at least led to those. I think I've definitely had my share of airtime and then some, so...
Sometimes I don't talk very much because other people have really good, useful, interesting, educational things to say. This was one of those days, where, I mean, you talked a lot, and that's a good thing. So.
Hooray! I'm so glad that everyone doesn't hate me.
Nobody hates
for one.
you.
No, people hate me. They're mostly bad people, but they're definitely people who hate me.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Real quick,
I might punch a Nazi here and there.
That's a great thing. Yeah, just the last thing I was going to say.
Like it. They really don't like it. They're like, oh, my face hurts. And I'm like, oh, is that because you have an orbital fracture? And they're like, that's too many big words. It's really sad.
Yeah, it's the same people that
right.
that think Hitler was awesome and support all kinds of wars. Sad somebody gets popped in the face with a fist. Blows my mind.
Well, I grew up in Klan land, so I have a general thing against Nazis.
Yeah, I want to burn.
I grew up. I'm from Minnesota originally, and St. Paul, Minnesota is it's kind of a center of Aryan Nation bullshit, and or white supremacy. And I've had to deal with those people. I've had to deal with going to concerts and trying to have a good time, and they're all just assholes to everybody, even the white people. I don't like Nazis. I don't like Nazis at all, and I try to be non-judgmental. But to me, Nazis are every bit as bad as ISIS, and it really blows my mind that I see so many people on the right now. They're like all upset about ISIS, as they should be. ISIS wants ethnic cleansing. That's we can all agree that that's a really bad thing. But Nazis have a history of it. They have done it, millions upon millions upon millions of people, and to see people being okay with that, it's our grandfathers killed Nazis. What the hell?
Well, see, I think, you know what, this is something that I could bring up, actually, since Tim's asking for topics, and I think this is about that quite a bit. And one of the things that is really perpetuating a weird vibe, this whole information age in which we live, the altering of language is something to be really, really mindful about in the rise of fascism. It's something to be really mindful about in general. And I strongly believe that you cannot rebrand the notion of being a Nazi. One of the few tweets I've ever put out over the Team DenMom account, where, again, we stay obscenely, disgustingly polite as much as humanly possible because it's just how we like to operate on that account, was about that notion. Because after the Spencer thing, and he goes like, I'm not a Nazi, I'm just a member of the alt-right who believes in, peaceful ethnic cleansing. And I just went off. Peaceful ethnic cleansing. There is no such thing as Nazi light. Fuck that. And I mean, like, that's extreme. That's right. Really extreme for me on that account. We have a thing about cursing even. Like, that's a rule I set down very early because it just isn't the vibe that we want that account to have, because it's about love and community, and we do consider ourselves to be like the love army of the resistance at this point, as much as humanly possible. But I can't love that personally. I cannot love the rebranding of something so obscene into some, kinder, gentler language. And there's a lot of that happening, and understanding the code words of the media and the code words of government as such that it is right now is so essential to understanding what's really happening, because it doesn't sound as threatening as it really is if you just go like, oh, the alt-right, yeah, they're kind of kooky. It's like, no, Nazis, genocide, bad.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important that we call a spade when the media is trying to call it a diamond.
I think it's disgusting how these Nazis get voices on all these mainstream media right now. And even some of the independent, more supposedly, left-wing media, they're letting them on too. I'll never let a Nazi on people's radio. Not in a million years. I couldn't sit and talk to one of them. I'm going to hang up. And if I'm in person, they're going to get their ass whooped. There's just no other. I wouldn't be able to control myself. I have no love for them. Stupid. Oh, my God. I don't understand.
Well, and again, I think the moderating of language makes it faux palatable.
Yeah,
he's not wearing an armband. He just has opinions. And so you tie that into the idea that somehow everybody's opinion carries the same weight, and that somehow opinions carry the same weight as facts, and that all facts, it's horrific, and it's propagandist, and unfortunately, some of it's even like distraction from other things that are happening that are actual, because it's just windbags being Nazi windbags, which is a thing they love to do.
Yeah, but they give them a legitimate, valid voice when they put them on these shows. I mean, I said I wasn't going to talk about that guy. I'm not going to mention his name, but I mean, he went on all these shows, and these people are just like, smiling at him, and yeah, they'll say, fuck you or whatever to him, but then the rest of the thing, they're shaking hands and smiling and telling little jokes. This is a freaking Nazi you have on here. You know what I mean? These are racist scumbags. why are you giving them all this love, you know? And then I another media that I kind of like, you know, independent media, they were saying, oh, well, you know, we want people to know what they believe so they can combat it, you know, but why give them the voice? I can tell you what they believe. You don't need to hear it from them. You've heard it. Read their
I'm
Twitter.
pretty sure we all learned what they believed in history if we had anything resembling school.
Yeah, I mean, and they got these guys.
They've demonstrated.
Like, look at that Spencer dude and that other jackass, you know? They have them all dressed up. They have the little Hitler hairdos, one of them. They have this, you know, they're trying to make them all really popular, really cool. They never just, you know, it's really a big PR game to make these people normalized. I mean, even our administration, they make up more terror attacks than they do words, you know? And at the same time, we're having real terrorist attacks in Canada and other places, you know, by white extremists. And they just took these guys off the terrorist watch list. They won't even mention these attacks, you know? Like,
yeah, that shit's ridiculous.
Well, then you've got entire
you know,
contingents that would...
that.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's all I had to say.
Oh, I was going to say, you've got entire contingents of people who would claim that, God, we had like how many trolls last year in the last 12 months or whatever have tried to come at me saying like, the KKK no longer exists. It's like, did you miss the part where they endorsed a candidate?
Yeah, I get this dude every so often
like,
on
you can't
Twitter.
say they don't exist if they're saying, hi, we're here, we have an opinion.
Yeah, I always get like, they're so weak now.
That's a willful level of ignorance that I don't understand at all.
Yeah, well, people don't understand this, though. And I this one dude always comes on and argues with me, and I try to use logic, you know, because he doesn't come across as hostile. He comes across
you can't
as
logic at illogic, you know.
Well, he doesn't
right?
seem racist. He just seems really ignorant, you know? Or maybe he's just trolling in a really slick way. But I try to explain things like, yeah, there might be 8,000 KKK members across the United States, and that seems like it's not a lot. But look at all their supporters, you know? Most people nowadays that work at banks and police stations and stuff, they're not going to say they're members. You know, people in the government, most of them don't say they're members. They're just supporters. The members are these old hick hillbillies. One of them just ended up in a river, shot in the head. And I thought that was pretty awesome. But, you know, the members aren't the main problem. You got these other people that sympathize with them. And these people have real power.
Well, and the thing is that, like, it's like, you know, robots in people's skin. Like, you don't know they're a fucking Terminator until oops. Because, like, here's a story, an actual true story from growing up in Clanland. You know, where I grew up, you couldn't go to the nearest real big town, big being a, you know, very stretched term here, but you couldn't go there most weekends because, you know, the Klan or the Aryan Nation would be out marching every freaking weekend. And you couldn't go to the nearest reasonably sized city on Hitler's birthday because the entire everybody would be out marching. You still can't go to, like, a gun show up there without seeing newly manufactured Nazi patches and stuff. Like, you just want to, like, go buy a, you know, surplus sleeping bag and you got to deal with the Nazis and decide who you want to spend money with because maybe they actually are Nazis, or, you know, as opposed to collectors of memorabilia. I'm not even kidding. And it's like really close to actual civilization. It's so creepy. But anyway, so this was how it was when I was growing up. You know, crosses burning from the highway on the way to, you know, synagogue in the evenings or just any random Tuesday night. Like, oh, look, there's the Klan. And so it's a real thing. Meanwhile, there was one black family in the town where I lived. You know, this town that had more cows than people, where we were moved when I was 8 from actual civilization. I remember turning to my mother at one point going like, where are all the other kinds of people, Mama? Where are they? Anyway, we had one black family. And no lie, they moved to Alabama after a few years because they felt safer. And I believe their father got a job. But still, that was a point that they made. It's like, I think we're going to feel safer when there's actually more black people around us. So their immediate neighbors, who they were always a little bit standoffish, and they were always home on the weekends. Didn't ever see them go out on the days when the marches were happening, right? They show up at like a Super Bowl party right after this other family moves that had been their neighbors for like 4 years. And they're like, man, I'm just so relieved they finally moved because they were bringing down the property values and I just never liked them.
Man.
And it's like, wow, I know I'm never going to speak to you all again. Never liked you much to begin with, but now I know why. And so for every person that's out there, how many of those neighbors exist, right? Like the people who aren't ready to talk about it till the people can't hear them no more, or wouldn't ever say it out loud because they know somehow it's not going to be taken away. That, you know, they only would say it in a room where they thought it was okay. Like they didn't realize that like my family would not be okay with that.
Yeah, they're just scummy racists that try to hide it. There's a lot of people like that.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm saying. Is like you've got your obvious Nazis, and then you've got the ones who are like, you know what? I'm pretty cool with all that. And the only way you can tell those people is if you remember where all the Trump signs were last year.
Yeah, those are the people. Yeah. I'm not racist, but.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it starts with a but, like, no offense, but, like, you're about to be offensive. I'm not racist, but cool, you're about to be racist. Now I can tune out.
Yeah, here's the thing about the KKK meetings. They're a bunch of dudes, sometimes women. They wear these big dresses, and you know, it's nothing that a couple Molotov cocktails can't take care of. If you pass a Klan rally, toss a couple Molotov cocktails at their dresses, watch them burn, enjoy yourself. Be like a little fireworks show. That's my advice for anyone going past a Klan rally.
The trouble, of course, being that, as we're saying, most of the people that are a problem right now are not at that rally because they're just at church or having dinner with their family or home watching, you know, Law and Order reruns like everybody else.
Yeah. No, but I mean, if you happen to go across one,
some
Molotov, it's always a good thing to do.
So you just go everywhere with a Molotov, Tim?
I'll tell you what, if I passed a bunch of dudes in Klan dresses, I'd be at the nearest gas station, buying some detergent and some liquid bottles to go back. they're not
you just don't like Nazis, do you?
I hate them, man. They killed one of my really good friends, man. I really hate them, and I hated him before that.
Yeah.
I hate him even more. You know the whole story. It's just.
I do know the whole story, Tim, and I think I would love to see you do a episode of your show where you discuss in detail that story, because I think people need to hear that and understand just how violent and dangerous Nazis are and how much they love violence. And I mean, Nazis are so violent and dangerous that sometimes I wonder if they're not really racist. They found an excuse to be that dangerous and violent, to let it out. You know, that's how dangerous and violent they are. Yeah, a violence fetish.
They're really racist, but it's based on fear and ignorance about these other people who are going to do this to them. These other people are going to take their jobs. These other people, and never once, especially with the job thing, never once do they blame the corporation that's robbing them blind, or these banks that are getting everything. It's always the Mexican people or the black people or this person or that person, you know?
Well, scapegoating is a time-honored tactic. People don't understand giant entities. You know, it's complicated. You know, corporate shit is complicated. Finances are complicated, but people understand the idea of not liking somebody, because everybody had that one kid in school they just didn't like or whatever. You know, everybody got bullied once or something. So it's like there's that psychology game again.
Yeah, but I'm saying the dude busting his ass all day, you know, 60 hours a week plus, working job after job, minimum wage, and he doesn't maybe have legal paper status. Why are you jealous of him? What's he really taking from you? You know?
Yeah, but the thing is that the guy who's mad at that guy is really mad at his boss because he hates his boss. But the thing is that he shouldn't necessarily even hate his boss, because his boss probably hates his own boss, who hates his boss, because the problem is not any of the bosses, it's the corporation they all work for. So it's displacement of the thing. But like, back to the other thing really, really quick. Tim, if you want to do that show, I will volunteer to interview you for that. I will structure that show and I will interview your ass for that, because that's a very important show, and I agree with Steve.
Well, I think if I did that, I'd talk to his family and get some of them on there. You know,
I'm just saying, I will do whatever you need me to do to make that show happen.
Yeah, I mean, because it was so long ago. I don't know. Maybe I'll call one of them up and see if they want to do a show about it. He has 6 brothers and a sister still. You know, so
yeah,
it's a lot of people to talk about it.
the thing that I'm noticing with this whole rise of the Nazis is the this whole thing where they're always playing the victim and saying free speech, our free speech is being trampled on. And I've gone back and forth on this because freedom of speech is such a sacred thing to me. Mm-hmm. That I've been like, well, shouldn't we let them speak? Because, freedom of speech, everybody gets to speak. If you start saying, well, you can't speak, but you can speak, where does it end? I mean, when you look back in history, you'll see that, like the whole thing of the crusade against heavy metal in the 80s, it started off with, some like terrible lyrics about, Satan and murder and whatnot, but all of a sudden, it got to a point where Judas Priest was in court defending themselves over song lyrics that had nothing to do with that shit, So I've always kind of wondered about that and tried to figure out where I stand on that, and I kind of answered it last week, and it was after a conversation I had with Tim. The thing of it is when you have an organization that has a clear history and or stated goal of stifling free speech, they've just kind of given up their right to free speech as far as I'm concerned and shut them the fuck down. So, these Nazis talking about how they have a constitutional right to say what they want to say. No, you don't, because you think nobody else has a constitutional right to say what they want to say. So eat your goddamn medicine.
You know how I look at it, Steve. First of all, yeah, everyone has a right to say anything they want, but there's consequences.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to deal with the public. You say something bad enough, you're going to deal with the people saying, no, I don't want to hear that, and we're going to fight that. That's first thing. Second thing is, ask any of these Nazis, any of these scumbucket racists, you want free speech for everybody, because they say, the Klan should have free speech, the NSM should have free speech, all these groups need free speech, they should have the right to do what they want. Fine. The same people who say that, then you know what? ISIS agents and ISIS supporters should be able to go and protest and have free speech too. All of a sudden they say, no, they shouldn't. Why? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, because ISIS wants the same thing they want. They want ethnic cleansing.
That's the quickest way to shut them down, because they can't defend that anymore. They have to either say, yeah, ISIS should have free speech because they're terrorists just like us, or no, and then how come they don't and you do? Boom, you got them.
I think there's really two things that also are part of this. Is that one is, speaking as a representative of an organization, i.e., like in this case, I made it very clear, and I want to restate, I'm on this show today as myself. There are times that I mention the values of my team, but I am not speaking for the team as a whole because I am incapable of doing that because, again, decentralized organization, right? So I'm speaking for myself. If I were speaking as a representative of Team DenMother, I would have to speak to a prescribed spiel, and that's a thing. So, but you're representing that and that whole organization, whether it's a company or a nonprofit or a gang or whatever you may be, that I think has to be taken into account, because if you're like, if you're fucking David Duke and you're speaking for the Klan, like that's different than like, I'm just some guy talking bullshit, right? Now, on the other side too, is that there's like, it's still a law on the books most places. It's illegal to yell fire in a theater because it might start a stampede and people will get trampled and die. So when you talk about consequences, it's not just the consequence that you might get punched in the face. If you are saying something that incites violence against other people, if you're saying something that creates an environment of danger or causes somebody to kill themselves out of fear, or it doesn't even have to be death. It just has to be an outcome, Consequence just means, if you break down the Latin, consequence, after action, it's what comes next. So whatever comes next, you are responsible for that shit.
Yeah, I mean,
you should be dealt with accordingly to the nature of your speech.
Yeah, you don't think these Nazis like Spencer and all them are just as responsible for people attacking Muslims and shooting up mosques and stuff and showing up with guns I mean, people show
I
up.
absolutely agree.
People show up to protest mosques with guns, calling them terrorists, and at the same time, they're so violent. You got guns. You're standing in front of a place of worship with guns, and calling them violent. You know, these people are whack jobs. I don't even understand them. And Steve, just
well, you
real
know,
quick.
that
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think.
Well, I was just gonna say that. Oh, jinx.
Real quick, just real quick. I think the whole thing about freedom of speech originally was not that you can just go scream any racist thing you want or whatever. I think it was for dissent against the government, like people to be able to speak up against the government and not be jailed. I mean, the stuff that's happening now. You know, I think that's the true thing behind it. You know, they misinterpret it. I think the whole purpose of freedom of speech is so we can speak against an oppressive government. We don't have to worry. We can say what we believe. You know, we can, and I think they took it
Even in
way
the
out of
United
line.
Kingdom to this day, they don't have the speech protections and the press protections that we have here. That was the whole point, was to create an environment where you could legitimately dissent against the tyrannical government.
Yeah, and people just take it way out of line. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Now I'm trying to remember what I was going to say. You were talking about at that time you were talking about I can't even really remember.
Well, he was talking about like the cognitive dissonance and just like the weirdness of like you're the violent ones when I'm the one standing here being like potentially imminently violent.
Oh, yeah. See, it kind of comes down to this hypocrisy that's programmed into us, I notice, with this whole like left-right paradigm, which is, first of all, that thing is an imaginary construct. It's not real. You know, it's something that was made up to put us on spots. And then the whole thing is, if you're on the right side of that, it's okay to do it's not okay to do certain things unless you're on the right. It's not okay to do certain things unless you're on the left. You know, it's created this mindset that spits in the face of morality, because morality is not defined by what's right or wrong. It's defined by, are you on my side or not? You know, if you're on my side, that horrible shit you just did is okay. But if you're not,
it's a really gross form of moral relativism.
Yeah, very much. And, you know, I see it from both sides. I see it from the left. I see it from the right. But I'm going to say it like it is, you know, because as somebody who does not have a dog in that left-right fight, you know, I sit there and I watch. There's way more of it on the right.
I think that the whole thing is like, when we talk about partisanship, you know, it's so destructive. I mean, because if you know, it's not just about elections and like, oh, I'm just going to vote down the line for my stuff. It's like, if you have to adhere to everything that gets said by the best people for certain jobs get, you know, in terms of candidacy, get booted off platforms because they don't quite agree enough. And it's like, that's nonsense. And honestly, I don't have a dog in any of these fights either, because I'm a civil libertarian. You know, like I'm virulently, disgustingly pro-choice about everything for the most part, except for things that are like, you know, inciting death to other people. You know, I'm very anti-genocide, as I previously mentioned. So, like, I believe that people should be able to be free and do their thing. And, you know, if you want to be the kind of person who owns and enjoys firearms, fantastic. Do so conscientiously and with love, and great. If you don't, no one's going to force you to. In my world, it's like these are
right
not things that have to be about right and left. It's about with what are you personally comfortable, and with what, you know, can you live, and what brings an enhanced benefit to your life. It doesn't have to bring a benefit to mine. As long as it's not bringing a detriment to mine.
Yeah, everyone wants to.
My life.
Everyone wants to categorize everything. Like, you know, like I don't believe any one way. I'll agree with some of these right-wing people on things like, you know, some of the gun issues and stuff, and I'll agree with left-wing people on a lot of other stuff, you know. And it's just, And they want to put you in this box, like, oh, you think this is good, then you're this, or you think this is good, then you're that. Why can't you just believe what you believe down on your own beliefs that don't really fit into either side? And they can't figure that out. It's like the same thing we were talking about earlier. If you're not for Hillary, you got to be for Trump. If you're not for Trump, you got to be for Hillary. Why? I'm an anarchist. Why do I have to be for any of these people? I don't even like politicians. Yeah. I don't think we need any of them.
Freedom, motherfuckers, you know?
Yeah. It just blows my mind.
But the thing is, though, we're really socially programmed into the binary, I think, you know, and it's I think if there's one theme of this whole conversation, it's psychology, man. Like, just both what's, you know, sort of native to our brains and what's programmed in socially. But, like, Democrat, Republican, left, right, male, female, whatever. And it's like, really, most of life is gray areas, man. It's a lot fuzzier than that. And if you actually pause to think about it and, you know, whatever, you're going to come to your own conclusions. And if you take the time to ask other people and be, like, respectful of other people and ask them, so where do you come down on this stuff? Like, you'll learn that other people are also more flexible and interesting than just, like, calling them a right-winger or a left-winger or whatever else is going to articulate. Like, if you learn about people as people. But the thing is that we don't have in our brains the space to know everything about every single person. So, like, boom, default categories happen, and then Twitter and everywhere else blows up where it's like, every Republican can just go shoot themselves in the head because they're horrible and I hate them. Like, maybe not actually all of them, but who knows, man. You've just lost your thread now.
I say that about Republicans and Democrats.
You are an equal opportunity hater, Tim.
Yeah. I can't get into it. So yeah, you
guys. It makes everybody the same. He's real cool like that.
We're approaching the 2-hour mark. So, any last words anybody wants to talk about? Anything for the last 4 or 5 minutes?
I got nothing.
Yeah, me neither. Maybe we should just end it now, when you know, and call it a day.
I got a word.
Go ahead.
Freedom, man. I got that word. But yeah, I also got love, respect, self-care, resist, educate, listen.
Those are very good words, yeah.
They're all pretty good words, I think. You know, there's a thing that I put out a lot on you know, whenever I have to. I'm usually the one on our account who goes off on the big threads, and it's just like, stand, speak, write, fight, rest, repeat is the common refrain at the end of it. You know?
Yeah.
Stand up, speak up, write what you gotta write, say what you gotta say, get your rest, get up and do it again.
Yeah.
Whatever you believe in, do the thing. You know, don't just sit on your ass, do the thing.
Yep.
If you're a Nazi motherfucker, you might get punched. But you know what? If you're not a Nazi motherfucker, a Nazi might punch you. So just, like, be cool with that and do your thing.
Yeah, not if I'm around.
I like it.
Cool. So thanks you guys for doing this monthly show.
Thanks for having us.
And I guess I'm going to have another MNOO in about a week, and Steve in about 2 weeks is going to have another I Fought the Law. So stay tuned, guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll play them out with the groovy music.
Groovy music.
Sweet.
Peace, y'all. Or not. Whatever you like.